Part 1. The Shadow and the Silhouette. For 8 months, I have been a living ghost. That is the price of entry into a world like Niccolò Vitali's. You learn to move through his penthouse like a draft of cold air, felt only in the shudder it leaves behind. My hands polish surfaces that reflect a life of obscene wealth, fold linens that feel like whispered secrets against skin, and arrange flowers that weep petals more valuable than my freedom. The penthouse is a glass fortress in the sky, all sharp angles, polished steel, and windows that look down on a New York that has always looked straight through me. Niccolò Vitali is a storm I've learned to sense brewing. I hear the cadence of his Italian leather shoes on the marble, a sound both elegant and lethal, and I make myself scarce. I see him in fragments, through a parting of doors, his black hair a touch too long, his suits a second skin of power, his eyes the color of a winter storm that has never once deigned to see me. He entertains women who are not his wife. They are all sharp laughter, vacant eyes, and the lingering scent of perfume that doesn't belong. I clean up after them. I strip beds that smell of sex and regret, collect wine glasses stained with lipstick that isn't his wife's, and empty ashtrays of cigars he smoked while watching them leave. I don't ask questions. My job is to be a phantom, to erase the evidence of his sins. The only anchor in this sea of polished lies is my sister, Chiara. She is the penthouse's private chef, 24 years old, blessed with our mother's fiery spirit and none of my quiet desperation. She creates meals that are symphonies of flavor, plating deception with edible gold. Every night, we escape this gilded cage, riding the subway back to our Brooklyn walk-up, two sisters clinging to the fraying rope of normalcy. I work every double shift offered. I need every dollar. Because $58,000 in debt is a chain my father left me when he gambled away our lives, and then his own. The debt collectors don't care that he's gone. They only care that his blood runs through my veins. So I clean, I fold, I polish. I accept the overtime and the shame that comes with it. On a Thursday, the custom-made clock chimes 10. My body aches from scrubbing the steam room where Niccolò had one of his guests earlier. My lower back is a knot of protest as I lift my cleaning caddy. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass, a cold autumn rain begins to paint the city in streaks of blurred light. Calling it a night? Chiara appears, pulling on her worn jacket, smelling of truffles and thyme from the dinner she prepared for Niccolò and his latest companion. Yeah, I breathe, the word heavy with exhaustion. She studies me, her gaze missing nothing. You look like hell, Sienna. I'm fine. You always say that. She links her arm with mine, a solid, warm presence as we head for the service elevator. My place tonight. I'll make carbonara. I can't. I have to be back here early. The lie tastes bitter. The truth is, I'm $300 short for the next payment, and the interest is a living thing, growing in the dark. Outside, the rain is a relentless, cold downpour. We huddle under the awning. Chiara checks her phone. Train's delayed. Want to make a run for it. 3 blocks. That's the gauntlet between Vitali's tower and the subway. It's his territory. I've heard the whispers. Asterisk protected. Ordered. His asterisk. But tonight, Chiara gets a text. Her boyfriend's car broke down. She's torn. Go, I tell her, forcing a smile. I'll be fine. She hesitates, then kisses my cheek. Text me when you're home. I watch her run, a splash of color in the gray night, then pull my hood up and step into the deluge. The streets are unnervingly quiet. My sneakers are soaked in seconds. I count my steps, my landmarks. The boutique he probably owns, the silent art gallery, the dark mouth of an alley I've passed 1,000 times. Tonight, 2 men step out of it, blocking my path. My heart seizes. Evening. The one with a shaved head and a cruel smile speaks. His companion is a mountain of silent muscle. Evening. I manage, trying to step around them. He shifts, a wall of ill intent. Where's the fire, sweetheart? Home. My voice is steadier than my knees. Excuse me. Hold on. His smile is a predator's grimace. We're just being friendly. The mountain moves behind me, cutting off my retreat. Dread, cold and sharp, pools in my stomach. I don't want trouble. No trouble. Shaved head holds out his hand. Just your bag and that phone. Easy. My mind is a frantic bird. Asterisk scream. Run. Fight. Asterisk all useless. With trembling hands, I give him my bag. He takes my wallet, then looks at me. Phone. I hand it over, my connection to Chiara to safety gone. Good girl. His eyes then drop to my chest, to the simple black polo with the discreet V embroidered over my heart. His expression changes. Wait a second. You work for him. In the tower. Fear, icier than the rain, lances through me. No. Don't lie. He grabs my collar, yanking me forward. I know that logo. You work for Vitali. He looks at his partner. She's one of his. The mountain's face darkens. I'm just a cleaner. I plead, desperation clawing at my throat. I don't know anything. I just clean. Shaved head laughs, a hollow, ugly sound. Well, just a cleaner. You're gonna deliver a message. The first punch is a starburst of agony across my cheekbone. I stagger. Hands grab me, fingers digging deep, branding my skin. A palm smothers my scream. This is what happens, he hisses, his breath hot and foul in my ear. When the Italian thinks he can take what isn't his. When he thinks his money and his pretty wife can hide who he really is. The second blow is a hammer to my ribs. Then another. And another. The world dissolves into a kaleidoscope of pain and rain. I curl into a ball, my soul screaming a silent prayer for it to end. A fist yanks my head back by the hair. I see his knuckles, a final punctuation, before the world goes black. I don't know how long I was out. Seconds? An eternity? I wake on the cold, wet pavement, the rain a drum on my broken body. Every breath is a shard of glass in my side. My left eye is swollen shut. The taste of my own blood is a copper penny on my tongue. They are gone. My things are gone. All that remains is the pain. Somehow, I get up. I stumble to the subway. A woman's concerned face blurs in and out of focus. The train ride is a jostling nightmare. Climbing the stairs to my apartment is a Herculean feat. The bathroom mirror shows me the truth. A swollen purple eye. A split lip. A constellation of brutal, blossoming bruises across my ribs and back. The clear, dark imprints of fingers on my arms. I turn the shower on, sit on the floor in my wet clothes, and finally, in the steam and solitude, I let the silent, shaking sobs come. Chiara finds me. Her face goes from sleep softened to a mask of horror. Sienna. Oh my God, Sienna. I'm okay, I choke out. You're bleeding. We need to go to the hospital. No. The word is a plea. I can't, Chiara. I can't afford it. She crouches, her hands hovering, afraid to touch. What happened? Mugged. 2 guys. They took everything. Her eyes, wide and terrified, search mine. She doesn't believe it was random. She helps me undress, helps me shower, her touch unbearably gentle as she bandages my wounds. Later, in the dark, she whispers, I never should have left you. It's not your fault. But as I lie there, every nerve ending screaming, I replay the moment he saw my uniform. The recognition. The deliberate, targeted violence. This was because of Niccolò Vitali. Because of his secrets, his affairs, his wars. And I was the message. When my alarm screams at 6 a.m., I stare at the ceiling. I need the money. I need the shift. The debt doesn't care that I'm broken. I layer makeup over the bruises, a pathetic mask. I wear a high-necked, long-sleeved shirt to hide the fingerprints on my arms. I look like a stranger. Chiara drives me to the tower, her silence louder than any argument. The penthouse is its usual pristine, indifferent self. I move through the morning on autopilot, a marionette of pain. Around noon, I'm in Niccolò's study dusting. He isn't supposed to be here. The door opens. I turn. And he is there. Niccolò Vitali. He has discarded his jacket, his white shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing dark tattoos that speak of a life before this luxury. His storm cloud eyes, for the first time, are fixed directly on me. They see me. Truly see me. Sorry, Mr. Vitali, I stammer. I thought you were out. He doesn't respond. His gaze is a physical weight, tracing the swollen line of my cheekbone, the poorly concealed split in my lip. What happened to your face? The question is a blade, quiet and sharp. I fell. The lie is ash in my mouth. On the subway stairs. They were wet. He takes a step into the room. Then another. The door clicks shut behind him, the sound echoing in the sudden, intimate silence. Look at me. It's not a request. It's a command that bypasses my will. I lift my face, letting him see the truth my makeup cannot hide. His expression doesn't change, but a muscle ticks in his jaw. He closes the distance between us. He is so close I can smell the cedar on his skin, the faint, expensive scent of his cologne, and something darker, uniquely him. Tell me again how you fell. The stairs. I lost my footing. Which side? He asks, his voice dangerously soft. What? Left or right? Which side hit the stairs? My mind blanks. Left. I think. You think. He begins to circle me, a predator. But you're favoring your left side when you breathe. So you fell on your left, hit your left eye, split your lip, and now your left ribs hurt. He stops in front of me. A very consistent fall. His eyes drop to my hands. Show me your arms. My blood runs cold. Mr. Vitali. Asterisk show me, asterisk. His tone brokers no argument. There is a heat in his gaze, a possessive intensity that terrifies and enthralls me. Slowly, I push up the sleeve of my right arm. Scrapes. The other one. I hesitate, but his will is stronger. I push up the left sleeve. The bruises are spectacular. Perfect, violent ovals from a man's grip. Nicolo stares at them, and the air in the room grows cold. When he speaks, his voice is the quiet before the kill. Who did this to you? I told you. Don't. The word cracks, final and absolute. Don't lie to me again, Sienna. Those are not from a fall. Someone put their hands on you. Where? The use of my name shocks me. He knows it. After 8 months of invisibility, he knows my name. 3 blocks from here, I whisper, the truth pulled from me. Thursday night. Walking to the subway. What did they take? My bag. My phone. My wallet. I swallow, the motion painful. And then they saw my uniform. His eyes flash with a terrifying light. Anne, they asked if I worked for you. I said no. They didn't believe me. My voice breaks. They said it was a message. The silence that follows is more frightening than any outburst. He turns, walks to his desk, and presses a button on an intercom. Lorenzo. My study. Now. He looks back at me. Sit down. I sit, feeling small and exposed. A man enters, Lorenzo, his consigliere. He takes in the scene with a single, sweeping glance. 3 blocks from here, Nicolo says, his voice like ground glass. Thursday night. 2 men. They saw her uniform and decided to send me a message. Lorenzo's face hardens. Where exactly? I give him the location. Around 10:15. We have cameras, Lorenzo says. I'll pull the footage. He looks at me, and there is no sympathy in his eyes, only a cold, calculating efficiency. Can you describe them? I do. The shaved head. The silent mountain. Alessio, Lorenzo says. Sounds like Marco Alessio. Works for the Bratva. The Russian. He looks at Nicolo. This was a deliberate provocation. Nicolo's hand curls into a fist on the desk. Find him. Find them both. I want them here by midnight. Consider it done. Lorenzo leaves. I am alone again with Nicolo. The energy coming off him is volatile, a contained inferno. This isn't necessary, I say, my voice thin. I'm fine. It was just a mugging. It wasn't a mugging. He turns, and the look in his eyes steals the air from my lungs. It's not pity. It's raw, unfiltered possession. They attacked you because you are under my protection. Because you walk my streets. Because you breathe my air. He moves around the desk, sitting in the chair beside mine, close enough for me to feel the heat of his body. That makes it personal. I'm just a maid. You work in my home. His gaze bores into me. You've been here 8 months. I've noticed how you align the books on my shelf by height. How you never touch the letters on my desk. How you take every shift offered, your eyes always shadowed with a worry you think you hide. He leans closer, his voice dropping to an intimate murmur. You honor a debt that isn't yours, Sienna. That is not the act of just a maid. He knows. He knows everything. So you understand, he continues, his breath a whisper against my skin. Why I cannot let this stand? In my world, an insult unanswered is an invitation for war. And I protect what is mine. The word mine hangs between us, heavy with implication. It should terrify me. Instead, a treacherous, warm thrill courses through my veins. He stands, offers me his hand. Come. You're not cleaning anything else today. You will rest in one of the guest suites until this is handled. I place my hand in his. His grip is firm, sure, and he pulls me to my feet with an effortless strength that makes me feel both fragile and cherished. For a moment, we stand too close, his hand still enveloping mine. The air crackles with a tension I have no name for. Then he releases me and leads me to a room more luxurious than any I've ever entered. A room with a bed I was only meant to make, not to lie in. Rest, he commands, his tone leaving no room for argument. Lorenzo will need time. He leaves, and the door clicks shut, a sound of profound finality. I sink onto the bed, my body trembling not just from pain, but from the seismic shift in my world. Niccolo Vitali saw me. He knew my name, and he was going to war for me. Through the window, the city sprawled, a kingdom he ruled from on high. And I, Sienna, the invisible girl, was suddenly at the very heart of it. The debt, the pain, the fear, it was all still there. But for the first time, I wasn't facing it alone. I was wrapped in the dangerous, intoxicating protection of a king. And I was no longer sure I wanted to escape. Part 2, A Consuming Fire. The guest suite was a gilded cage, a world away from the chipped tiles and thin walls of my apartment. Silence pressed in on me, broken only by the frantic rhythm of my own heart. Every throb of my cheek, every sharp protest from my ribs was a reminder of the alley, but it was overshadowed by the memory of Niccolo's touch. The way his fingers had closed around mine, not as an employer's, but as a man's. Possessive. Certain. Chiara found me an hour later, her face a mixture of fear and awe. She carried a tray of food she hadn't been asked to bring. "Okay, talk," she whispered, closing the door and perching on the edge of the lavish bed. "Niccolo Vitali just personally escorted you to the Valkyrie suite. Lorenzo is moving through the penthouse like a shadow. What in God's name is happening?" "He knows," I said, my voice hoarse. "About the attack. He saw through the makeup." "How?" "He just looked at me, Chiara. And he knew." I drew my knees up, wincing at the pull in my side. "The men who attacked me, they recognized my uniform. They knew I worked for him." Her face paled. "The Russians?" A cold knot tightened in my stomach. "Lorenzo said the name Alessio. Said he works for the Bratva. So this is a territory war, and you were the opening shot." She let out a low whistle. "And Vitali is taking it personally. He said..." I swallowed, the words feeling dangerous. "He said I was under his protection. That it was personal." Chiara's eyes widened. "Sienna, he's never. I've been here 2 years. He's a ghost to the staff. He uses our names only when giving orders. But he used yours. He looked at you." Before I could form a response, a firm knock echoed. Lorenzo entered, his expression unreadable, a laptop tucked under his arm. "Mr. Vitali requests your presence in his study," he said. "For identification." The walk downstairs felt like a descent into the lion's den. The study, usually a place of quiet order, now hummed with a latent, dangerous energy. Niccolo stood behind his desk, his posture rigid, the sleeves of his shirt still rolled up, revealing the powerful, tattooed forearms I had tried not to stare at. He looked every inch the ruthless kingpin I knew him to be. Lorenzo opened the laptop. Grainy black and white footage showed the familiar street corner. My own ghost walked into the frame, a small, hooded figure in the rain. Then the 2 men emerged. My stomach twisted into a sickening knot. "That's them," I whispered, my voice trembling. Lorenzo zoomed in. "You're certain?" "Yes. He's the one who grabbed me." Niccolo leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the frozen image with a predator's focus. "Marco Alessio," he stated, the name of a death sentence. "He's been a thorn in my side for months." This wasn't random. It was a challenge. He looked at Lorenzo. "Find them. I want them brought to the warehouse. I will deal with this myself." Consider it done. The clinical way they discussed the impending violence should have frozen my blood. Instead, a strange, dark part of me felt a surge of vindication. They had hurt me, and he would make them pay. It was primitive. It was terrifying. It was utterly intoxicating. After Lorenzo left, Niccolo turned his stormy gaze to me. "You will stay here tonight. Your sister as well. It's not negotiable. I can't just..." "Those men know your face," he interrupted, his voice low and final. "They know you work for me. Until I have eliminated the threat, you are under my roof and my protection. Accept it." The word protection wrapped around me, both a shield and a chain. Exhaustion finally won, seeping into my bones. I nodded. His expression softened, just a fraction. "Good." That night, sleep was a fractured thing, broken by pain and the phantom sensation of rain on my skin. Around 2 a.m., I heard it, the low rumble of voices, the sound of the private elevator descending. I knew where they were going, what they were going to do. I should have stayed in bed. But a morbid, compelling curiosity drew me out. I crept downstairs, a phantom in my own right, drawn to the light spilling from beneath his study door. It was ajar. I saw them then. Marco Alessio and his mountain on their knees, hands bound. Blood streaked their faces. Lorenzo and 2 other men stood guard, impassive. And Niccolo, he was sitting in his chair, perfectly still, watching them. The calm at the center of the storm. I didn't know, Mr. Vitali. Alessio pleaded, his voice ragged. I swear. We were just supposed to scare one of your people. Send a message. A message, Niccolo repeated, his voice soft, lethally so. You put your hands on a woman under my protection and call it a message. He stood, the movement fluid and controlled, and walked to stand before the kneeling man. He crouched down, bringing them eye to eye. Do you know what she does here? He asked, his voice an intimate, deadly whisper. She cleans. She is quiet. She works herself to the bone to pay for a dead man's sins. And you beat her unconscious in an alley as a political statement. He stood, turning his back in a gesture of utter dismissal. Lorenzo, take them to the warehouse. Make it clean. I want the Russians to understand the cost, but I do not want a mess. Understood. I retreated before I could see more, my heart hammering against my bruised ribs. I had just witnessed a death sentence being passed. And the part of me that was still capable of horror was drowned out by a roaring, primal sense of being avenged. Back in the suite, I sat on the bed, trembling. He had done that for me. The cold, untouchable Niccolo Vitali had descended into the darkness for me. A soft knock came at the door just before dawn. I opened it and he was there. He looked tired, the lines around his eyes deeper, his hair disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. He held 2 cups of coffee. I couldn't sleep, I said, my voice a whisper. He nodded and handed me a cup. Our fingers brushed and a jolt, hot and sharp, shot up my arm. The coffee was perfect. Cream, 1 sugar. Of course he knew. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped back, granting him entry. He moved to the chair by the window, and I sat on the edge of the bed, the space between us crackling with unspoken words. What happened to them? I asked, the question tearing from me. He studied me over the rim of his cup. They paid for their mistake. That's not an answer. It's the only one I will give you. His voice was gentle but firm. You don't need those images in your head, Sienna. Trust me. How do you know what I need? The challenge was out before I could stop it. Because I see the conflict in your eyes. The part of you that is horrified warring with the part that is glad. He set his cup down and leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Don't torture yourself with guilt. They chose their path. I simply ensured it was their last. I looked away, my gaze falling on the city lights. I should be afraid of you. You should be, he agreed quietly. I'm not. I met his gaze, and the truth of it was a solid thing in my chest. I'm not afraid of you. I know. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. That is the most terrifying and captivating thing about you. He stood then and crossed the room in 2 strides, stopping before me. Let me see. It was a command, but his voice was soft. I tilted my face up. His fingers, surprisingly gentle, brushed my jaw, turning my head to the light. His touch was a brand, sending waves of heat through my chilled body. He traced the edge of my bruise with his thumb, his eyes dark with an emotion I couldn't name. The swelling is better, he murmured. His thumb drifted down, skimming my split lip. A shiver racked my body, one that had nothing to do with pain. His eyes locked with mine, and the air vanished from the room. The world narrowed to this space, to his touch, to the storm in his gaze. A bolt of pure, liquid heat shot through me. Before I could form a coherent thought, a sharp knock echoed at the door. Niccolo's head snapped up, the lover vanishing in an instant, replaced by the dawn. The air in the room chilled. What? He barked, his voice cutting through the wood. It's Lorenzo, came the reply. We have a situation. The Russians are making noise. They found out about Alessio. All the warmth from his touch fled my skin. Reality, cold and sharp, was crashing back in. Niccolo's gaze met mine. The promise in his eyes was a stark contrast to the danger in Lorenzo's words. I will handle it. He kissed me once more, hard and fast. Stay here. Do not leave this room. He rose from the bed, a magnificent naked predator, pulling on his discarded trousers with an efficiency that was both intimidating and mesmerizing. He didn't look back as he left, closing the door behind him with a definitive click. I was alone, the scent of him still clinging to me, the phantom feel of his hands on my body. But the sanctuary of the bed now felt like the eye of a hurricane. An hour later, I was dressed and ventured out, finding Chiara in the kitchen. She took one look at my face, the raw, well-loved look I couldn't possibly hide, and her eyes widened. Oh, Sienna, she breathed, pulling me into the pantry for privacy. You and him? I could only nod, my cheeks flaming. I knew it, she whispered, a mix of awe and terror in her voice. The way he looks at you, it's like you're the only thing in the room. But this is serious. This is forever. I know. Do you? She pressed. Lorenzo just told me. The Bratva is demanding a meeting. A sit down. This is because of what he did for you. You're not just his girlfriend, Sienna. You're his weakness. You're the reason empires go to war. Her words were a bucket of ice water. The euphoria of the night began to curdle into a low, thrumming anxiety. The sit-down was arranged for that evening at a neutral location. A private, soundproofed room in a high-stakes poker club Nicolo owned. He insisted I be there. They need to see you, he told me as Lorenzo helped me into a simple but elegant black dress. They need to see that you are not a secret to be hidden. You are a fact. My fact. His words were armor, but my heart was a frantic bird in a cage. He looked devastating in a tailored black suit, every inch the ruthless ruler. But when his eyes met mine, I saw the man from the dawn, the one who had worshipped my skin with a reverence that felt like absolution. The room was thick with cigar smoke and tension. 3 Russians sat across the table, led by a man named Ivanov, with a face like a slab of granite and eyes devoid of warmth. His gaze slithered over me, and I felt stripped bare, assessed as a commodity, a vulnerability. Vitaly, Ivanov grunted, his accent thick. You killed 2 of my men. They touched what was mine, Nicolo replied, his voice calm, but with steel beneath. They were delivered back to you as a courtesy. The next ones who try will be sent back in pieces. Ivanov's lip curled. Over a maid? Nicolo didn't flinch. His hand found mine under the table, his fingers lacing through mine, a public, defiant declaration. Over my woman. The word echoed in the silent room. My woman. It was archaic, possessive, and it sent a shockwave through me, part thrill, part terror. Ivanov stared at our joined hands, then back at Nicolo's face. He saw it then, what Lorenzo and Chiara had seen. This was not a political maneuver. This was personal. Deeply, dangerously personal. This changes the landscape, Vitaly, Ivanov said slowly. A man with a weakness is a predictable man. A man with something to lose, Nicolo countered, his thumb stroking my knuckles, is the most dangerous man of all. Remember that. The meeting ended with a tense, unresolved truce. No territory changed hands, but a new line had been drawn in the sand, and my name was written all over it. Back in the penthouse, the adrenaline faded, leaving me shaking. Nicolo led me to his bedroom, *R* bedroom, now, and poured a glass of amber whiskey, pressing it into my hands. You held your ground, he said, his pride evident. I was terrified, I admitted, the glass trembling in my grasp. He took it from me and set it aside, framing my face with his hands. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Mia Luna. It is acting in spite of it. You were magnificent. He kissed me then, not with the frantic hunger of the night before, but with a deep, soul-searing intensity that felt like a vow. It was a kiss that promised protection, but also acknowledged the storm we were now in together. Later, in the dark, wrapped in the silk sheets in his arms, he made love to me again. This time, it was different. It was slower, more deliberate, a deliberate remapping of my body as his territory. He was branding me, not just with pleasure, but with a sense of belonging. Every touch, every whisper in the dark, a mix of Italian endearments and gritty promises, was another brick in the fortress he was building around us. As I drifted to sleep, his body a protective shield against the world, I understood Chiara's warning. I was his weakness, yes. But I was also his strength. And he was mine. The debt, the danger, the dark allure of his world, it was all part of the price. And as his breath warmed my hair and his heartbeat steadied my own, I knew with a terrifying, exhilarating certainty that I would pay it. Gladly. Part 4, Forged in Fire. A new rhythm began to define my life, a dizzying waltz between 2 worlds. My days were still spent in the Vitaly penthouse, but I was no longer a ghost. I was a presence. Nicolo moved me from the guest suite into his own bedroom, a chamber I had only ever cleaned with averted eyes. Now, it smelled of us, of his cedar and my jasmine soap, of sex and shared secrets. My cleaning duties were formally, quietly reassigned. Officially, I became his personal archivist, tasked with organizing his vast collection of first edition books and managing his private correspondence. The salary was a number that made my head spin, a silent war on the debt that was no longer a crushing weight but a manageable foe. Unofficially, I was his. Everyone knew it. The staff treated me with a new, cautious deference. Chiara watched me with a sister's protective worry, but also with a dawning acceptance. She saw the way the shadows under my eyes had lightened, The way I held myself not with the hunch of burden, but with the straight-backed grace of a woman who was cherished. Lorenzo was the only one who dared to speak the truth plainly. He found me one afternoon in the library, cataloging a new shipment of Italian poetry. "He's changing the rules because of you," he stated, leaning against a bookshelf. The meeting with Ivanov? In the past, he would have responded with a direct strike on their Brooklyn operations. Now he's playing a longer, more strategic game. He's thinking about stability, about a future. I looked up from the leather-bound volume in my hands. "Is that a problem?" "It's a vulnerability," Lorenzo corrected, his gaze sharp. "But it's also a strength. He sleeps now. Did you know that? For years, he survived on 4-5 hours a night. Since he sleeps a full 7. A man who is rested is a man who thinks clearly." He paused. "Just remember, Sienna, the clearer he thinks, the more clearly his enemies see you." His words were a cold splash of reality, but they couldn't extinguish the fire Niccolò had lit inside me. He stilled. "Absolutely not." "No, Niccolò." I stepped forward, meeting his stormy gaze without flinching. The girl who had been beaten in an alley was gone. In her place was a woman forged in the fire of his love and the ice of this threat. "This is because of me. Because of us. I am not a prize to be locked away. I am part of this. Let them see that. Let them see that the woman you love does not hide. She stands with you." A complex emotion flickered in his eyes, shock, pride, and a fierce, blazing possessiveness. He saw the resolve in my face, the steel I had inherited from a mother who fought cancer and a father who left a legacy of debt. He saw a partner, not a victim. After a long, tense moment, he gave a single, sharp nod. "You stay by my side. You do exactly as I say." An hour later, I was in the back of a blacked-out SUV, dressed not in silk, but in dark, practical clothing. Niccolò was beside me, a figure of lethal grace in a black trench coat, a gun holstered discreetly at his side. Lorenzo sat in the front passenger seat, his silence approving. We didn't go to a warehouse. We went to a half-finished high-rise, a skeleton of steel and concrete overlooking the river. The wind whipped through the open floors, a cold, mournful sound. On the top floor, under the harsh glare of construction lights, a man was on his knees. It was one of Ivanov's lieutenants. He was bloody, his head hanging. Niccolò's men formed a silent, grim circle. He led me into the center, his hand on the small of my back, a gesture of both protection and presentation. The lieutenant looked up, his eyes widening when he saw me. He hadn't expected this. Niccolò didn't speak to him. He looked at Lorenzo. The message was delivered to her sister. Lorenzo nodded. "This is the one who gave the order. Pavel." Niccolò finally turned his gaze to Pavel. His voice was quiet, cutting through the wind like a scalpel. "You threaten the family of the woman I love." Pavel spat blood onto the concrete. "He will just find another WH." He didn't finish the word. Niccolò moved with blinding speed. There was no gun, no dramatic flourish. It was a brutal, efficient act of violence. A sharp, sickening crack echoed in the vast space. Pavel slumped to the ground, unconscious or dead, I didn't know. I didn't look away. Niccolò turned back to me, his breathing steady, his eyes searching mine for horror, for revulsion. I felt none. Only a cold, savage satisfaction. He had done this for me. For Chiara. This was the dark sacrament of his world, and I was now a part of it. I stepped forward, past Niccolò, and stood over Pavel's motionless form. I looked at the faces of the men in the circle, meeting each of their gazes, letting them see the ice in my own. "You tell Ivanov," I said, my voice clear and carrying in the wind. "You tell anyone who wonders. You do not touch what is his. And I am his." I turned and walked back to Niccolò. His expression was one of raw, unvarnished awe. He cupped my face, his thumb stroking my cheek, wiping away a tear I hadn't even felt fall. "Asterisk Mia Regina asterisk," he whispered. "My queen." In the SUV on the way back, he held my hand tightly. There were no words. The violence hung in the air between us, a shared secret, a bond now sealed in blood. That night in our bed, he made love to me with a desperate, almost worshipful intensity. It was different from all the times before. It wasn't just about passion or possession. It was a communion. He kissed the palms of my hands as if cleansing them, worshipped my body as if it were a sacred temple that had been threatened. "I was afraid," he confessed later in the dark, his voice a rough whisper against my skin. "I was afraid you would see the monster I am and run." I turned in his arms to face him. In the moonlight, I traced the lines of his face, the brow that held the weight of an empire, the lips that could order death and whisper love with the same breath. "I don't love you in spite of the monster, Niccolò," I said, the truth solid and unshakable in my heart. "I love all of you. The king and the killer. They're the same man. And he is mine." He pulled me into a crushing embrace, his body shuddering with a profound relief. We had passed through a crucible. The threats were far from over, but we had been tested. The invisible girl was gone forever. In her place was a queen crowned in darkness, ready to rule by her king's side. The following morning, a single white rose lay on my pillow. No note. None was needed. It was a message, as clear as the one we had delivered in the half-built tower. I belonged. To him. To this life. To the fire and the ice. And I would not have it any other way. Part 6. The Empress's Gambit. The white rose on my pillow was not just a symbol of love. It was a coronation. The news of what happened in the half-built tower had spread through the underworld like a shockwave. I was no longer the Italian's whore. I was Vitali's Regina, his queen. And a queen does not merely stand by her king. She rules at his side. The threat did not vanish with Pavel's broken body. It evolved. Ivanov, a man built on brute force, had learned a painful lesson. He would not make the same mistake twice. The next attack was not a knife in the dark. It was a poison pen. It began with city inspectors, swarming Niccolò's most lucrative, semi-legitimate business, a high-end boutique hotel. Then, a devastating exposé in a financial journal, hinting at money laundering through his art gallery. The attacks were clean, legal, and devastatingly effective. They were designed to choke his empire, not with violence, but with bureaucracy and bad press. Niccolò paced his study like a caged panther. The financial reports scattered across his desk like casualties of war. "He is using worms to eat the lion," he snarled, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I cannot shoot an accountant." I watched him from the leather chair, the one I now considered mine. The cold clarity that had filled me in the tower was still there, sharpened by a new, calculating calm. "You don't shoot the accountant," I said, my voice quiet but cutting through his frustration. "You follow the worm back to its nest." He stopped pacing and looked at me, the storm in his eyes receding to reveal a focused intensity. "What are you thinking, Mia Regina?" "I'm thinking like the woman who was invisible for 8 months. I stood and walked to his desk, tracing a line on the financial report. "I know how to look for the things people want to hide. The small inconsistencies. The nervous tells. Let me look. Let me into the books. All of them." It was a monumental request. It was asking for the keys to his kingdom, the darkest corners of his empire. Lorenzo, who had been silently observing by the window, stiffened. Niccolò didn't hesitate. He placed a hand over mine on the desk, his gaze burning with absolute trust. "Do it." For the next 48 hours, I lived in his study, surrounded by ledgers, bank statements, and encrypted laptops. I used the skills a life of poverty had beaten into me. The ability to spot a fraudulent charge, to stretch a dollar until it screamed, to find the hidden pattern in the chaos. I cross-referenced payments, traced shell companies, and followed the digital money trail. And I found it. A single, recurring payment, cleverly disguised as a consulting fee, routed through 3 different countries before landing in an account linked to a city councilman. A man known for his tough-on-crime stance and his secret gambling addiction. "I cannot give you a normal life," he said finally, his voice raw. "I cannot erase the things we have done. The things I have made you a part of." He cupped my face, his eyes gleaming in the dark. "But this life, our life, is real. This love is real. And I would burn down heaven and hell to keep you from doubting that." He didn't make love to me that night. He worshipped me. His touch was a slow, deliberate reconsecration of every part of me I thought was tarnished. He kissed the hollow of my throat where my fear lived, the inside of my wrists where my pulse hammered with anxiety, the space over my heart where my guilt festered. He mapped my body not as a territory to claim, but as a soul to heal. "I love the girl you were," he whispered, his lips trailing down my stomach. "She was a survivor, a warrior who didn't know her own strength." He moved lower, his breath hot against my inner thigh. "But I am in awe of the woman you are, the queen who stands in the fire and commands it." When his mouth found my core, it was not an act of passion, but of devotion. He loved me with his tongue and his hands until the ghosts receded, and the only thing that was real was the pleasure building inside me, a pure, cleansing fire. I came apart with a sob that felt like a release, my body shuddering not just with climax, but with the unburdening of my soul. He held me afterward, his arms a fortress against the world and the demons in my head. "We are not damned, Donatella," he whispered into my hair. "We are chosen, forged for each other in a way no one else can understand. This cage you feel? The bars are not made of gold. They are made of my love, and they will never, ever crush you. They will only ever hold you safe." As I drifted to sleep, wrapped in the truth of his words and the safety of his embrace, I understood. The peace I craved wouldn't be found in a life without him. It was found with him, in accepting the beautiful, terrible, all-consuming reality of what we were. The war was over. The next battle was for my soul. And lying in his arms, I knew I had already won. Of course. Here is part 9, where a new, deeply personal thread emerges, testing their union in the most profound way yet. Part 9, The Heir of Shadows. The piece we carved out was deep and resonant, a symphony after years of cacophony. I had made my truce with the ghosts, and Nicolo's love was the anchor that held me fast. We were not just secure, we were happy. The darkness of our world became a familiar backdrop, making the light between us all the brighter. It was in this period of hard-won contentment that I missed the first sign. A sudden, overwhelming wave of nausea one morning, dismissed as stress. Then, the fatigue that sleep couldn't touch. The scent of Nicolo's morning coffee, once a comfort, now sent me rushing to the bathroom. A cold, quiet dread settled in my stomach, one entirely separate from the dangers of his world. I bought a test, my hands trembling not from fear of an enemy, but from the terrifying, exhilarating prospect of a future I had never dared to imagine. When the 2 pink lines appeared, the world tilted. I was carrying a Vitali, an heir to a kingdom of power and blood. I didn't tell him immediately. I sat on the floor of our massive bathroom, my back against the cold marble, and let the reality wash over me. A child, a baby who would be part him, part me. A living, breathing symbol of our union. And the ultimate target. The joy was a fierce, blinding sunrise. The fear was a black hole, sucking all the light away. I found him on the terrace, silhouetted against the dusk, a cigar in one hand, a glass of whiskey in the other. He turned as I approached, his smile, a thing that still made my heart stutter, fading as he saw my face. "Donatella? What's wrong?" He was instantly alert, the dawn surfacing, ready to face a threat. I took his hand and placed it flat on my stomach, over the womb that housed our secret. I watched his face, saw the confusion, then the dawning, staggering comprehension. The glass slipped from his other hand, shattering on the terrace floor, the sound like a gunshot in the silence. His eyes, wide and disbelieving, shot to mine. "Are you?" I could only nod, my throat too tight for words. The emotions that warred on his face were an epic tale, shock, a wild, unbridled joy, and then, a fear so profound it eclipsed my own. The hand on my stomach trembled. "A child," he breathed, the word full of awe and terror. He dropped to his knees before me, his arms wrapping around my waist, his face pressing against my belly. For a long moment he stayed there, a powerful king brought to his knees by the most fragile of miracles. When he looked up, his eyes were shining with unshed tears. "A baby," he whispered, a true, unguarded smile breaking through like the sun. "Our baby." He rose and kissed me, a kiss of pure, unadulterated joy. He spun me around carefully, laughing, the sound rich and free in the evening air. For a few precious minutes, we were just 2 people in love, celebrating the creation of a new life. But the night always comes. The joy was quickly tempered by a grim, practical reality. That night, in our bed, he held me as if I were made of the most delicate glass, his hand splayed protectively over my stomach. "No one can know," he said, his voice a low rumble in the dark. "Not until you are too far along until it's safe." He couldn't bring himself to say the words to be harmed. "The doctor will be one of Caruso's, completely discreet. You will not leave the penthouse without Lorenzo and 2 additional men. The security here will be tripled." The gilded cage, which I had learned to see as a sanctuary, now felt its bars tighten. I was carrying the most valuable asset in the Vitali Empire, and the most vulnerable. "They will find out eventually, Nicolo," I said quietly. "There is no secret in this city that can be kept forever." "Then we will be ready," he vowed, his voice turning to steel. "I will turn this city inside out and bury anyone who even thinks of looking at you with ill intent." His love was a fortress, but it was also a prison. The following weeks were a study in controlled paranoia. My public appearances ceased. The world outside the penthouse windows became a painting I could no longer touch. I was protected, cherished, and utterly confined. The turning point came during a meeting with Lorenzo. I was in the study, reviewing security protocols, a new, obsessive pastime. Lorenzo laid out a plan for a safe house in Switzerland, for when the time came. I looked from the blueprints to Niccolò. You would send me away? To keep you safe. To keep our child safe, he said, his jaw tight. A new, ferocious instinct rose in me, more powerful than fear, more defining than my role as consigliera. The instinct of a mother. No, I said, my voice quiet but absolute. Both men looked at me. I am not an asset to be moved to a secure location, I stated, standing up, my hand resting on the gentle, new curve of my belly. I am your consigliera, and I am the mother of your heir. Running and hiding is a sign of weakness. It tells our enemies that we are afraid, that this, I gestured to my stomach, is a vulnerability they can exploit. I walked to the map of the city mounted on the wall. Our strength has always been here. In this city. In our home. We do not hide. We fortify. We make it known that to touch this child is to invite a wrath so absolute it will erase their bloodline from the earth. I turned to face them, my gaze locking with Niccolò. We do not run. We reign. And our child will learn to rule from a throne, not a bunker. The silence in the room was profound. Lorenzo looked at me with a new, deep respect. Niccolò's eyes held that same awe I had seen in the tower, but now it was mixed with a dawning, fierce pride. He crossed the room and took my face in his hands. You are right, he murmured, his thumb stroking my cheek. My fierce, brilliant queen. He kissed my forehead, a seal of his agreement. That night, his love was different again. It was a vow. He worshipped my changing body with a reverent passion, his hands learning the new contours, his lips whispering promises in Italian against my skin. He made love to me with a tender, earth-shattering care, as if we were not just two lovers, but the sacred architects of a dynasty. As I lay in his arms afterward, his hand resting on the life we had created, I felt the final piece of my transformation click into place. I was no longer just a survivor, a queen, or a consigliera. I was a mother, the guardian of the next Vitali. And I would make this city, with all its beauty and its brutality, a worthy inheritance for our child. The greatest battle of our lives was on the horizon, and I was ready. Part 10, Our Kingdom of Dawn. The world knew before I showed. A consigliera doesn't simply vanish from public view without causing whispers, and whispers in our world were like kindling. The news broke not as a gentle announcement, but as a strategic leak from our own camp. Donatella Vitali, consigliera and wife of Niccolò Vitali, is with child. The Vitali lineage is secured. It was not an invitation for congratulations. It was a declaration of war to any who would dare challenge our future. The response was immediate. The penthouse became an impenetrable fortress, but this time, the bars felt not like a cage, but like the ribs of a great beast protecting its heart. Niccolò's protectiveness was a tangible force, a constant, low hum of vigilance that mirrored the new life growing within me. He attended meetings with a new, chilling finality, his decisions faster, his punishments more absolute. The city understood. A threat to the mother was a threat to the heir, and a threat to the heir was the end of everything. I did not hide. I presided. I sat beside him at the head of the table during meetings with the other families. My hands folded over my swelling stomach, a living symbol of Vitali's unassailable future. My presence silenced any lingering doubts about my place. I was not a distraction. I was the foundation. The final, foolish challenge came from a remnant of the old guard, a distant cousin of Don Russo who thought a pregnant woman was a soft target. He made a move on one of our shipping routes, a test of Niccolò's focus. He learned his error within hours. Niccolò didn't just crush the operation. He erased the cousin's name from the city's memory. It was a lesson delivered with such brutal, efficient finality that the silence that fell over the underworld was one of perfect, terrified submission. The war was over before it could begin. The kingdom was at peace. On a cool spring morning, as the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of rose and gold, my body knew it was time. The pain was not a shock, but a purpose. Niccolò, who faced down armies without flinching, was pale and trembling as he held my hand, his voice a steady, grounding murmur in Italian as Lorenzo drove us to Dr. Caruso's private clinic. The world narrowed to the room, to the pain, to Niccolò's face, a mirror of my own struggle and awe. And then a sound that shattered and rebuilt the universe in a single instant, a sharp, indignant cry. A son. They placed him in my arms, a tiny, perfect thing with a shock of dark hair and eyes the color of a winter storm, just like his father's. The world fell away. The debt, the violence, the fear, it all melted into insignificance before this miracle. Niccolò knelt by the bed, his large, capable hand trembling as he reached out to stroke our son's cheek. A single tear traced a path down his face, a vulnerability I had never seen, a testament to a love greater than any empire. "Alessandro," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He looked at me, his eyes holding a universe of love and gratitude. "After my grandfather. A strong name for a king." I smiled, exhausted, euphoric. "Alessandro," I agreed, the name a prayer on my lips. We brought him home to the penthouse, not to a bunker or a safe house, but to the throne room of his inheritance. The staff, our extended family, greeted him with quiet joy. Chiara cried, holding her nephew as if he were the most precious treasure. Lorenzo, the granite-faced soldier, allowed a rare, soft smile to touch his lips. That night, after Alessandro was asleep in the nursery that adjoined our room, Niccolò led me to the terrace. The city sprawled beneath us, a kingdom won and paid for in blood and love. He stood behind me, his arms wrapped around me, his hands resting on my stomach, which was still soft from carrying our child. "It is complete," he said, his voice a low rumble against my ear. "Everything I have built, everything I have killed for, everything I am, it was for this moment. For you. For him." I leaned back against him, feeling the steady, powerful beat of his heart. I thought of the invisible girl I had been, polishing surfaces in a house that wasn't hers, carrying a debt that was a chain around her soul. I thought of the fear in the alley, the fire of our first kiss, the cold resolution in the tower, the profound peace of his love. "No," I said softly, turning in his arms to face him. I cupped his face, my gaze holding his. "It's not complete, my love. It's just beginning." I looked past him, through the glass doors, at our sleeping son. "We are not an ending, Niccolò. We are a legacy." He kissed me then, under the starlit sky, with the city he commanded at our feet and the future he had secured sleeping peacefully behind us. It was not a kiss of passion, though that fire would never die. It was a kiss of promise, a vow for all the dawns to come. The medical debt was gone. The threats were silenced. The invisible girl was a memory. I was Donatella Vitali, consigliera, mother, queen. I had not just survived his world, I had conquered it, hand in hand with the king. And as I stood there, wrapped in the arms of the man who was my destiny, I knew with absolute certainty that I had not just found a safe place to land. I had built a kingdom. The end.